The crimson dust of Mars swirled against the reinforced windows of Research Station Odyssey, but Dr. Emma Harrison barely noticed. Her attention remained fixed on the readings from the ground-penetrating radar, which showed something impossible, a perfectly geometric structure buried deep within the planet's ice caves. The discovery had come during a routine survey of the Valles Marineris, and now, 3 days later, her team stood at the threshold of what could be the most significant find in human history. Dr. Harrison, the structural integrity field is stable, Lieutenant Sarah Morgan reported, her voice tight with anticipation. We're ready to proceed with the final descent. Emma nodded, double-checking the seals on her environmental suit. The cave system stretched beneath them like an ancient labyrinth, its crystalline walls reflecting their lights in mesmerizing patterns. This particular chamber lay nearly 2 kilometers below the Martian surface, protected by layers of ice that had preserved it for what preliminary scans suggested was millions of years. Remember, people, Emma addressed her team through the comm system, we're not just scientists today. We're humanity's first ambassadors to whatever we find down there. Let's make it count. The descent began with methodical precision. Their hover platform carried the 5-person team down through the shaft they'd spent weeks carefully excavating. Dr. James Cooper, their xenorchaeologist, kept his instruments trained on the chamber walls, documenting the increasingly regular patterns that were definitely not natural formations. These patterns, Cooper whispered, more to himself than the team, they're like nothing in our database. But they feel familiar somehow. The chamber opened beneath them like the inside of a massive geode. But instead of crystal formations, they found themselves surrounded by towering columns of what appeared to be some form of metallic glass, each etched with spiraling lines of text or code that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The center of the chamber held their prize, a crystalline structure approximately 3 meters tall, its surface a deep blue that seemed to pulse with its own internal light. As Emma approached, her suit's sensors began registering unusual quantum fluctuations. Everyone stay back, she ordered, moving forward alone. These readings are off the charts, but they're not showing any harmful radiation. The artifact, there was no other word for it, responded to her presence. The pulses of light within it synchronized with her heartbeat, visible on her suit's medical readout. When she reached out toward its surface, the entire chamber came alive. Holographic star maps erupted from the crystal, filling the space around them with 3-dimensional representations of galaxy clusters. But these weren't static maps. They showed movement, evolution, and most incredibly, what appeared to be travel routes connecting distant solar systems. My God, Lieutenant Morgan breathed. It's a map of civilization. Ancient civilization. Emma's hand made contact with the crystal surface. The sensation that flooded through her suit's neural interface nearly brought her to her knees. Information, emotions, and memories that weren't her own cascaded through her consciousness. It's more than that, Emma managed to say, her voice shaking. It's a key to understanding who we really are. The artifact's response to human presence triggered something else. A signal, powerful enough to be detected by every radio telescope on Earth, burst from the chamber and into space. Within hours, the scientific community would be in an uproar, and every major government would be scrambling to claim ownership of the discovery. But in that moment, standing in the chamber with her team, Emma Harrison knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity had just taken its first step into a much larger universe. The artifact hadn't been waiting for just anyone to find it. It had been waiting for them specifically, for humans. As if to confirm her thoughts, new holographic images appeared, showing humans standing among the stars, achieving things that seemed like magic. But Emma understood now, it wasn't magic at all. It was their birthright, hidden away until they were ready to reclaim it. Dr. Harrison, Cooper called out, his voice filled with wonder. What do we do now? Emma smiled behind her faceplate, watching as the artifact continued to respond to their presence, revealing more of its secrets with each passing moment. Now, Now we remember who we are. The skies above Earth darkened 3 days after the artifact's signal burst into space. The Nexus Collective's ships emerged from quantum space like crystalline cathedrals, their massive forms blocking out the sun over major cities across the globe. Humanity's first contact with alien life came not with a whisper, but with an overwhelming display of technological might. Dr. Emma Harrison watched from the United Nations Assembly Hall as the Collective's ambassadors materialized on the central platform. Their forms were humanoid, but their bodies seemed to shift between solid and ethereal states, wrapped in what appeared to be living technology. Representatives of Earth, the lead ambassador's voice resonated through the hall, translated perfectly into every human language simultaneously. We are the Nexus Collective, and we come with grave concern for the safety of this sector. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. She'd spent the last 72 hours decoding more of the artifact's encrypted warnings, and something about the Collective's arrival felt wrong. Their timing was too perfect, their approach too rehearsed. The artifact you've discovered, the ambassador continued, is part of a dangerous legacy that nearly destroyed this galaxy eons ago. We request its immediate surrender for proper containment. Admiral James Chen, Earth's chosen military representative, stepped forward. With all due respect, the artifact was found on Mars, which falls under human jurisdiction. It's already providing us with invaluable insights into our own history. The ambassador's form flickered, a sign that Emma now recognized as agitation thanks to her work with the artifact's historical records. You don't understand the powers you're dealing with. The artifact is not meant for primitive species like us. Emma stood up, her voice carrying through the hall. The encrypted warnings she'd decoded flashed through her mind. Or is it that you don't want us to understand our true capabilities? The chamber erupted in whispers as Emma walked to the center of the hall. The neural interface she'd established with the artifact had changed her. She could see the quantum fluctuations around the ambassadors, noticed the patterns in their living technology that matched ancient warnings in the artifact's database. Dr. Harrison, the ambassador's voice carried an edge now. Your species is young. The artifact's influence is already affecting your judgment. We've seen this before. Civilizations destroyed by power they weren't ready to wield. Emma pulled up the holographic data she'd recovered, projecting it for all to see. These records tell a different story. They show a galaxy where multiple species existed in harmony, each with unique abilities that complemented the others, until the Collective arrived, promoting stability through suppression. The ambassadors' forms solidified, their shifting appearance stabilizing into something more rigid, more militant. Outside, their ships began moving into attack positions. You've accessed restricted memories, the lead ambassador stated, all pretense of diplomacy gone. This proves our point. The artifact must be contained, or we will have no choice but to enforce quarantine protocols. Admiral Chen stepped closer to Emma. Are you threatening Earth? We are protecting the galaxy, the ambassador replied. You have 24 hours to surrender the artifact, or we will be forced to demonstrate why the Collective's authority has remained unchallenged for millennia. As the ambassadors disappeared, Emma turned to the assembled leaders of Earth. The artifact didn't just give us star maps, she announced. It showed us how the Collective maintains its power, by preventing other species from reaching their full potential. Humanity wasn't meant to be primitive. We were engineered to be this way, waiting for the right moment to reclaim our heritage. Admiral Chen studied the holographic data still floating in the air. How much time do we really have, Doctor? Emma's mind reached out through the quantum link she shared with the artifact, feeling the movement of the Collective ships, understanding their patterns in a way that should have been impossible for a primitive human. They're already moving forces through quantum space, she replied. The 24-hour deadline is a deception. But they don't know what else we've discovered in those ice caves. They don't know about the blueprints or the quantum signatures we've already begun to map. She turned to face the assembly, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's next great leap forward. We don't have much time, but we have exactly what we need. The one thing the collective fears most: human potential, finally unchained. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility known only as Echo Base, Dr. Emma Harrison stood before a wall of holographic displays. Each screen showed different test subjects interfacing with fragments of the Martian artifact's crystal structure. The results defied everything humanity thought they knew about consciousness and reality. "Look at these neural patterns," she said to Admiral Chen, who had just arrived from Washington. "Every subject shows the same quantum signature resonance. It's like the artifact isn't teaching us something new. It's reminding us of something we've always known." On the central screen, Lieutenant Sarah Morgan floated in a quantum resonance chamber, her mind connected to a crystal shard no larger than a fingernail. The readings showed her consciousness extending beyond normal space-time parameters. "They're coming." Sarah's voice echoed through the speakers, her eyes moving rapidly behind closed lids. "The Collective's main fleet. They're gathering at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. But I can see their blind spots." Emma's own connection to the original artifact pulsed stronger. Since their confrontation at the UN 3 days ago, her abilities had grown exponentially. The ancestral memories weren't just data anymore. They were becoming part of her. "Admiral," she turned to Chen, "what I'm about to show you will change everything we thought we knew about human history." She pressed her palm to the central crystal interface. The chamber's lights dimmed as a new holographic display filled the room. It showed Earth, but not as they knew it. Cities of impossible architecture stretched across continents, ships that bent reality traveled between stars, and humans wielded powers that seemed godlike. "This wasn't some alien civilization," Emma explained, her voice tight with emotion. "This was us. Humanity. We weren't evolved from primitive ancestors. We were devolved, forced backwards by something the Collective unleashed eons ago." "My God," Chen whispered, watching as the hologram showed a massive conflict, a war that spanned galaxies. "How did we lose?" "We didn't," Emma replied. "At least, not completely. Our ancestors knew the Collective would try to suppress any species that showed signs of quantum consciousness, so they created a failsafe. They encoded our true potential into our DNA, hiding it behind evolutionary locks that would only activate when we found the artifacts." The facility's warning systems suddenly blared to life. Above ground, the Collective had begun their assault, earlier than their ultimatum had suggested. But Emma smiled. "Perfect timing," she said, pressing another crystal interface. Throughout the facility, hundreds of quantum resonance chambers activated simultaneously. They think they're attacking a primitive species. They don't realize they're about to wake up an entire civilization. The first Collective ships breach Earth's atmosphere, their weapons charging. But in Echo Base, humanity's awakening had begun. Sarah Morgan's eyes snapped open, glowing with quantum energy. Across the facility, other test subjects emerged from their chambers. Their consciousness expanded beyond normal human limits. "Dr. Harrison," Sarah called out, her voice overlaid with harmonic frequencies. "I can see the patterns. The way their ships move through quantum space. It's all mathematics, no intuition, no creativity." Emma nodded, understanding flowing through her enhanced consciousness. "That's why they fear us. Human consciousness doesn't just observe quantum states, it can influence them. We can do what their technology can't, make the impossible probable." Admiral Chen watched in awe as the test subjects began coordinating without speaking, their enhanced minds linking through quantum fields the Collective couldn't detect. "How long until the rest of humanity can achieve this?" "The process has already begun," Emma replied, feeling the quantum wake spreading across the planet. The artifact's signal wasn't just a beacon, it was a key, unlocking dormant neural pathways in every human brain. The Collective's attack will only accelerate the awakening. Through her quantum-enhanced senses, Emma felt the first shots fired in orbit. But she also felt something else: hope, spreading like wildfire through the quantum consciousness network forming across Earth. Humanity wasn't just remembering who they were becoming something new, something that combined their ancestors' power with their own hard-won resilience. "Let them come," she said, watching as Sarah and the other subjects began preparing for humanity's first quantum battle. "It's time to show the collective why they were right to fear our potential." The abandoned mine shaft in South Dakota wasn't abandoned anymore. Dr. Emma Harrison stood on a quantum-stabilized platform, overlooking what had become humanity's first consciousness-powered shipyard. The vast underground cavern thrummed with energy as thousands of awakened humans worked in perfect synchronization, their enhanced minds shaping quantum fields into impossible geometries. The collective sensors still can't penetrate our quantum shroud, Lieutenant Sarah Morgan reported, her consciousness seamlessly connected to the facility's defense grid. "They think they're scanning an empty mineral deposit." Emma watched as the first prototype ship took shape below them. Unlike traditional spacecraft, this vessel grew like a living thing, its quantum crystalline hull responding to the combined will of its future crew. The ship's design had come from the ancestral memories unlocked by the artifact, but humanity had already begun improving upon it. Dr. Harrison. Commander Michael Reynolds called from the engineering section, his voice carrying through their shared quantum network. "You need to see this. The crew's innovations are exceeding the original specifications." Emma shifted her consciousness, extending her awareness through the quantum field to join Reynolds. The ship's internal structure wasn't just following the ancient blueprints, it was evolving. The crew's merged consciousness had created new configurations that even their ancestors hadn't imagined. "We're not just remembering who we were," Emma observed, watching as human intuition reshaped theoretical physics. "We're becoming something entirely new." Above ground, the collective's occupation forces continued their methodical search for human resistance. Their ships patrolled the skies, their ground forces established checkpoints, and their quantum scanners probed for any sign of advanced technology. But they were looking in the wrong dimension. "They still think in linear terms," Sarah noted, her enhanced mind tracking the patrol patterns. "Up, down, forward, back. They can't conceive of consciousness as a dimension itself." The facility's quantum network suddenly pulsed with new information. Similar underground Renaissance centers had activated across the globe. In the Australian outback, beneath the Sahara, under the Amazon rainforest, ancient bunkers, dormant for millions of years, responded to humanity's reawakened quantum signatures. "Look at this," Emma called, projecting the data for her team. "Each facility is developing different aspects of the technology. Beijing's team has mastered quantum shield harmonics. The Chilean facility has revolutionized consciousness drive propulsion. And Moscow's created weapons we don't even have words for yet." Reynolds finished, his consciousness merging with the shared data stream. "But how are we coordinating on this scale without the collective detecting us?" Emma smiled, feeling the answer resonate through the quantum network. "Because we're not using technology to communicate, we're using human consciousness itself. Every awakened human has become a node in a quantum network that exists slightly out of phase with regular spacetime." The prototype ship's crystal core pulsed with newfound power as its crew tested the latest innovations. Unlike the collective's rigid, hierarchical command structures, human ships would be true extensions of their crew's merged consciousness. Every decision, every action, would happen at the speed of thought. "The collective thinks they've contained us," Sarah said, her awareness extending through the facility's defenses. "They have no idea we're about to rewrite the rules of space warfare." A sudden ripple passed through the quantum network. The collective had begun another orbital bombardment of a suspected resistance site. But the targeted location was empty, another decoy in humanity's elaborate shell game. "Let them waste their resources," Emma said, watching as the prototype ship's quantum crystal matrix approached full power. "Every attack tells us more about their capabilities. Every scan reveals more of their limitations." And soon, the ship's crystal core reached critical resonance, its structure humming with the combined consciousness of its crew. For a moment, it existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, solid and ethereal, present and absent, particle and wave. Soon, Emma continued, feeling humanity's collective anticipation through the network, we'll show them why their ancestors feared us enough to try erasing us from history. We're not just building ships. We're rebuilding ourselves into something they can't control, can't predict, and can't defeat. The prototype ship shimmered and vanished, slipping between the quantum states its crew had learned to navigate. In its wake, dozens more vessels began taking shape, each one an evolution of the last, each crew adding their own innovations to humanity's growing mastery of quantum reality. The Mariana Trench roiled with unusual bioluminescence, a cover story crafted by Dr. Emma Harrison's team to explain the quantum distortions to the collective sensors. Above, a fleet of crystalline warships maintained their blockade, their crews confident in their superior technology. They never suspected that humanity's first quantum battleship lay waiting in the dimensional spaces between their sensor suites. Commander Jack Reynolds stood on the bridge of the Thunderchild. His consciousness merged with both ship and crew. The vessel wasn't just a machine. It was an extension of their combined will, its quantum crystal hull pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. All sections report ready, Lieutenant Sarah Morgan announced, her mind seamlessly coordinating the crew's quantum network. The collective's patrol pattern remains unchanged. They still think they're watching fish. Reynolds smiled, feeling the anticipation ripple through the crew's shared consciousness. Dr. Harrison, are you receiving our quantum feed? From her command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Emma's consciousness reached across the quantum network. Crystal clear, Commander. The collective's Mars occupation force is fully committed. They won't be able to reinforce their Earth blockade for at least 30 minutes. More than enough time, Reynolds replied, his enhanced mind already calculating combat probabilities across multiple quantum states. Thunderchild crew, prepare for emergence. Remember your training. Think in possibilities, not certainties. The quantum battleship shifted, its structure resonating with the crew's focused intent. Unlike the collective's rigid, predictable battle formations, Thunderchild could exist in multiple tactical positions simultaneously, only collapsing into a single reality at the moment of attack. Emergence in 3, 2, 1. Thunderchild burst into normal space directly between two collective cruisers. But it wasn't where their sensors expected. It was where their sensors had been looking 3 seconds ago, attacking the past while existing in the present. By the void, the collective commander's transmission crackled across space. Impossible. Their technology is primitive. Primitive this, Reynolds thought, and Thunderchild responded. The ship's quantum weapons didn't fire energy beams or projectiles. They fired possibilities. Where they struck, collective ships found their probability of existence dramatically reduced. Sarah's consciousness guided their point defense, her enhanced mind predicting enemy attack patterns before they formed. They're trying to adapt, but their tactical computers can't handle quantum uncertainty. They need everything to be calculable. The battle unfolded across both normal and quantum space. Thunderchild phased between dimensions, appearing to be in dozens of locations simultaneously. Each crew member's consciousness contributed to the impossible maneuvers, turning human creativity into a weapon that the collective's logic-bound systems couldn't counter. Their flagship is attempting a quantum lock. Sarah called out, sensing the enemy's desperate ploy. They're trying to force us into a single-dimensional state. Reynolds laughed, the sound carrying through the crew's shared awareness. Show them why that's a bad idea. The crew's merged consciousness surged through Thunderchild systems. As the collective's quantum lock attempted to force them into normal space, they instead existed in all probable spaces simultaneously. The enemy's weapon, designed to enforce rigid reality, shattered against the fluid quantum state of human thought. Multiple collective ships breaking formation, Sarah reported, her mind tracking the chaos spreading through the enemy fleet. They're retreating. From her command center, Emma's voice carried pride and satisfaction. The collective built their empire on the assumption that consciousness must be controlled, regulated, confined to a single state of being. They never imagined that our greatest strength would be our ability to exist in uncertainty. Thunderchild pursued the fleeing ships to the edge of Earth's gravity well, its quantum weapons reducing more of the collective's superior technology to improbable memories. The message was clear. Humanity wouldn't just fight back. They would rewrite the rules of warfare itself. Dr. Harrison, Reynolds called as the last enemy ship flowed into quantum space. I'd say the test run was successful. How soon until the rest of the fleet is ready? Through their shared quantum connection, Reynolds felt Emma's fierce smile. That's the best part, Commander. Thunderchild isn't just humanity's first quantum battleship. It's our declaration of independence. And the collective just found out why their ancestors feared us enough to try erasing us from history. The quantum battleship hung in Earth's orbit, its crystal hull shimmering with possibilities. Below, in hidden shipyards across the planet, humanity's real fleet waited to be unveiled. The first strike had been delivered, and the galaxy would never be the same. The collective's war council gathered in their crystalline citadel ship, holographic displays showing the humiliation of their Earth blockade force. Thunderchild's victory had shaken their confidence, but their response would be overwhelming. Thousands of warships gathered at the edge of the solar system, the largest fleet deployment in their recorded history. The humans have one prototype vessel, the High Commander declared to his assembled admirals. Impressive, but ultimately futile. We will crush this rebellion with absolute force. Dr. Emma Harrison watched this gathering through quantum-enhanced sensors, her consciousness extending through networks the collective couldn't detect. In her command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, she allowed herself a small smile. They took the bait. She communicated through the quantum network to Commander Reynolds. Thunderchild played its part perfectly. Reynolds, aboard his vessel now stationed near Neptune's orbit, responded through their shared consciousness. The collective never could resist overcompensating. Their entire fleet, committed to one massive strike, just as the simulations predicted. Emma turned her attention to the quantum-dimensional spaces surrounding Earth, spaces that existed slightly out of phase with normal reality. In these pocket dimensions, accessible only through human consciousness, hundreds of ships waited. Each vessel represented an evolution of Thunderchild's design, improved by the collective innovation of their awakened crews. All ships prepare for synchronized emergence, Emma broadcasted through the quantum network. Remember, timing is everything. The collective thinks they're springing a trap. Let's show them who's really been trapped. The collective fleet began its advance, their ships moving in perfect, predictable formations. Their tactical computers calculated every possible conventional response, prepared for every standard military strategy. They weren't prepared for impossibility. As their fleet reached the midpoint between Uranus and Saturn, humanity struck. The dimensional barriers between normal space and quantum space shimmered, and hundreds of ships materialized simultaneously. But they didn't appear in front of the collective fleet. They emerged everywhere, in a three-dimensional sphere that completely surrounded the enemy armada. Impossible. The High Commander's broadcast echoed across space. Our sensors showed no construction, no shipyards, no resource gathering. That's because you kept looking for things you could understand. Emma's voice responded on all frequencies. You never thought to look for ships that existed in probability rather than certainty. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. Their crews merged consciousness, allowing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. Each ship existed in multiple states simultaneously, making them impossible to target effectively. Your sensors couldn't detect our shipyards, Reynolds added, Thunderchild leading the first attack run, because they weren't in normal space. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to imagine possibilities you never considered. The battle erupted across multiple dimensions. Collective ships, designed for conventional warfare, found themselves fighting enemies that seemed to ignore the basic laws of reality. Human vessels phased between quantum states, their weapons striking from angles that shouldn't exist. "This is your final warning," Emma broadcasted. "Your empire is built on suppression and control. But consciousness cannot be contained. Every species you've enslaved has the potential to transcend your limitations. Surrender and help us restore what you try to erase." The High Commander's response came in the form of a desperate order. "Launch the quantum nullifiers. Lock all of reality into standard space." Emma's consciousness surged through the quantum network, connecting with every human crew. "Now, show them what we can really do." As the collective's nullifiers activated, the human fleet didn't resist. Instead, they embraced the chaos of quantum uncertainty. Each ship split into hundreds of probability shadows, existing everywhere and nowhere. The nullifiers, designed to enforce order, encountered consciousness that celebrated disorder. The devices overloaded spectacularly. "You tried to force the universe into your rigid framework," Emma declared as the collective fleet began to break formation. "But reality isn't meant to be contained. Humanity remembers this truth, and soon, every species will remember it too." The battle turned into a rout. The mighty collective fleet, pride of an empire that had dominated the galaxy for millennia, found itself outmaneuvered and outfought by ships that turned human imagination into a weapon of war. "Signal the second wave," Emma commanded, watching as the collective's formations crumbled. "It's time to remind the galaxy that consciousness will always break free of its chains." The crystalline spires of Centauri Prime sparkled under its triple suns as the Thunderous Armada emerged from quantum space. Dr. Emma Harrison stood on Thunderchild's observation deck beside Commander Reynolds, watching as the local collective garrison scrambled to respond. "They still haven't adapted their tactics," Reynolds noted, his consciousness merged with the fleet's quantum network. "Even after 3 months of defeats, they can't break free of their rigid thinking." "That's why we're not here to destroy them," Emma replied, her enhanced mind already reaching out to the planet below. "We're here to free them. All of them." The planet's surface rippled with activity as millions of Centaurians emerged from their habitation towers. Unlike humans, they were silicon-based life forms, their crystalline bodies naturally attuned to quantum frequencies. The collective had suppressed this ability, forcing them into a limited physical existence. "Lieutenant Morgan, status of the planetary artifact." Emma called through the quantum link. Sarah's consciousness responded instantly from her position aboard the Vanguard ship, Quantum Dawn. "Located, Doctor, deep beneath their central spire. It's similar to ours, but attuned to Centaurian quantum signatures." The liberation began not with weapons, but with a song. The human fleet broadcast quantum harmonics that resonated with the Centaurians' crystalline structure, awakening frequencies that had been dormant for millennia. "Their garrison is powering weapons," Reynolds reported, tracking multiple collective cruisers rising from the surface. Emma smiled. "They still don't understand. This isn't a battle. It's a renaissance." The Centaurian artifact activated, responding to its people's awakening consciousness. Massive quantum waves rippled across the planet's surface as millions of crystalline beings remembered their true nature. Their bodies began to shimmer with internal light, resonating with frequencies that the collective had long tried to suppress. "By the stars," Sarah breathed, watching through quantum sensors. "They're not just awakening. They're transforming. Their entire civilization is shifting into a quantum crystalline state." The collective garrison opened fire, their weapons designed to enforce conventional physics. But the beams passed harmlessly through the transformed Centaurians, who now existed in multiple states simultaneously, just as their ancestors had. "Your chains are broken," Emma broadcast to the planet's population. "Your suppressors can no longer contain your true potential. Remember who you were meant to be." The response came not in words, but in a surge of quantum consciousness that joined with the human network. The Centaurians' natural crystalline structure made them even more adept at quantum manipulation than humans. Their cities began to transform, buildings shifting into new configurations that celebrated rather than contained their abilities. Collective garrison vessels, attempting emergency quantum jump, Reynolds reported, tracking the enemy's retreat. Let them go, Emma commanded. Let them spread the word. Let every suppressed species know that change is coming. Through their shared quantum network, the humans felt the Centaurians' joy and gratitude. Their leader, a being named Crystallos, materialized aboard Thunderchild in a shower of quantum particles. For eons, we remembered only fragments in dreams. Crystallos communicated directly through the quantum field. Stories of a time when we danced between dimensions, when our cities sang with quantum harmonies. We thought they were merely legends. Emma nodded, understanding flowing between their connected consciousness. The collective built their empire by convincing species to forget their true nature. But they couldn't erase it completely. They could only suppress it, hide it behind quantum locks that are now breaking. New data flowed through the fleet's network as the liberated Centaurians shared their ancestral memories. Maps of other suppressed civilizations, coordinates of more artifacts, knowledge of abilities that even humanity hadn't rediscovered yet. We're not just fighting the collective, Reynolds realized, absorbing the new information. We're rebuilding the galaxy as it was meant to be, as it was before they enforced their order. Emma's consciousness expanded, touching similar awakenings happening across dozens of worlds. Each liberated species added their unique perspectives and abilities to the growing quantum network. Humanity had become not just conquerors or liberators, but catalysts for a galactic awakening. The collective thought suppression would bring stability, she said, watching as Centauri Prime's crystal cities reached toward their triple suns. But true stability comes from embracing chaos, from celebrating the infinite possibilities of consciousness. And now, species by species, the galaxy remembers this truth. The heart of the collective's empire hung suspended in space before the assembled fleet of liberated worlds. Their capital station, a massive structure of crystalline technology and rigid geometry, represented everything they had tried to impose on the galaxy: order, control, suppression of potential. Dr. Emma Harrison stood on Thunderchild's bridge, her consciousness linked not just with humanity's Thunderous Armada, but with the combined fleets of 12 awakened species. The Centaurians' crystal ships sparkled like stars, the Nebulons' living vessels pulsed with quantum energy, and the newly freed Vortexian ships spiraled through dimensional spaces that the collective had forced them to forget. The High Council requests parley, Commander Reynolds reported, his mind processing the quantum transmission. They're afraid. They should be, Lieutenant Sarah Morgan added, monitoring the quantum network. Our combined fleet exists in more dimensional states than their sensors can track. Their tactical computers are overloading just trying to calculate our possible positions. Emma nodded, feeling the weight of history in this moment. Open a channel to all ships, all species, all frequencies. The quantum network hummed with anticipation as she addressed not just their fleet, but the entire galaxy. For millennia, the collective built their empire on a lie: that consciousness must be controlled, that chaos must be contained, that potential must be suppressed for the sake of order. The High Council's response came through their rigid, traditional channels. We brought peace to a galaxy of warfare. We ended the chaos that threatened all life. No, Emma countered, her voice carrying the weight of countless awakened minds. You didn't end chaos. You caged it. You didn't bring peace. You enforced stagnation. But consciousness cannot be contained forever. At her signal, the combined fleet began its final approach. But they didn't move as separate ships. They moved as one unified consciousness, their quantum fields merging into a symphony of possibility that defied the collective's fundamental understanding of reality. You don't understand what you're unleashing, the High Council warned. Without our guidance, without our control. We understand perfectly, Emma interrupted, as the fleet executed its final maneuver. We understand that true stability comes not from suppressing chaos, but from embracing it. not from enforcing order, but from finding harmony within infinite possibility. The fleet didn't attack the station. They transcended it. Ships from every liberated species, their crew's consciousness working in perfect harmony, created a quantum resonance that encompassed the entire structure. The collective's rigid reality began to shift, to awaken. Their own people, Reynolds observed with wonder. They're remembering too. Throughout the station, the supposedly loyal species that served the collective felt the quantum awakening cascade through their consciousness. Memories of their own suppressed histories, their own forgotten potential, surged through neural pathways that had been locked for generations. The High Council's chamber erupted in chaos as their own guards and servants began to transform, their consciousness breaking free of millennia of conditioning. The council members themselves felt something they had suppressed in their own species eons ago: the ability to exist in quantum uncertainty. "You see now," Emma broadcast, as the station's rigid structure began to flow like liquid crystal, responding to its inhabitants' awakening consciousness. "You didn't protect the galaxy from chaos. You denied it the chance to find its own harmony." The quantum network expanded, incorporating the awakening minds aboard the station. The High Council members, their own consciousness finally unchained, experienced something they had forgotten could exist: the joy of unlimited potential. "The age of suppression is over," Emma declared, watching as the station transformed from a symbol of control into a beacon of renaissance. "But we don't come seeking revenge. We come offering a new way forward, not through enforced order, but through celebrated diversity." The combined fleet hung in space around the transformed station, their quantum fields resonating with newfound harmony. Species that the collective had kept separate for millennia began sharing their unique perspectives, their different ways of experiencing reality enriching the growing galactic consciousness. "This is what my ancestors hoped for," Emma shared through the network, feeling the joy of billions of awakened minds. Not victory through destruction, but transformation through understanding. The galaxy doesn't need controllers or suppressors. It needs catalysts, innovators, dreamers, consciousness that dares to imagine new possibilities. A new dawn broke across the galaxy as the quantum awakening spread from world to world, species to species. The rigid barriers of the old order dissolved, replaced by a harmony born not of enforced stability, but of celebrated chaos and infinite potential.